Two friggin' rainbows, boys.
That's not how you do her.
Man,
it's a little better, but still too slow.
the camera goes crazy on the plasma.
Yeah.
Well, didn't get a whole lot accomplished today, but spent quite a bit of time trying to find a steering column that would work. And I modified this one here. It's supposed to tilt up and down a little bit, not very much, but I don't think it'll tilt up all the way because this shaft keeps hitting on down below. But yeah, there we go. It tilts up quite a bit, and it tilts down quite a bit. It's out of a Suzuki, some little Suzuki car. Have the ignition key, and if you take the ignition key out and lose it, apparently, then the steering locks. I actually cut a big chunk of this column off the bottom half. Well, yesterday we shortened up the steering column quite a bit. Cut it off here, cut the shaft inside, and there's this shaft here actually slips out, so I slipped it out, cut it off real short, and then put it back in. But I'm not real happy with when I cut the end off. There's this steady bearing that was inside of the sleeve that I cut off, so there's a little bit of play in the end. And this here is that's about how much length, I guess, I took out of the steering column, but it was like more like that, I suppose, that much length that I cut out. And then this piece here, this is the piece that holds the bearing on the end, and it had some big chunks sticking off of it too that I had to cut off. So this is how much I removed from the steering column originally. And the piece that I cut off, this end piece here, it used to look like that, and this chunk here was welded on to there like that. So that's what I cut off. But when I cut it off, I cut it here around the tube, but I ended up cutting through the center shaft also later on. And the center shaft had a Teflon piece that would slide out with the splines on the end. So after I cut it off, I'd slide it back in again so I could attach my universal joint and steering shaft. And I come back here today for this. So we ended up welding the column bracket on. It would probably be better to bolt it on, especially if usually I just make things work, but if for any reason it wouldn't work, you would have to like cut it off or grind it off or grind the welds. So this is the shaft that was originally much longer, but it had like a telescoping Teflon part where I actually clamped on here with the vice grips and I slid it out, and there's like an inner and an outer shaft that slide inside of each other. So I slid this one out, cut off the inner shaft, or the outer drive shaft, I guess, steering shaft, and then I put this piece back in again so I can have the splines to attach to. And this piece here that I cut off, it had a steady bearing on the end here, so there's a little bit of slop now. So I need to to make me satisfied, I'm going to correct that. So this steering bearing fits this shaft really nice, and you can clamp it down so it's not wobbly or whatever. And it was originally retained in here, and I was going to put it on the shaft and clamp it or something, but I think today I've come up with something better. So I'll put the bearing back in there again, maybe not quite as far, and then put this back on like that, and weld it where I cut it off, so I still have the same length column. Well, I got the end on there again, and I made it so that this piece here, this retainer, would come close to the frame in case I want to fasten it there also or weld it there also. It's currently able to tilt up and down, but I think when we welded this bracket yesterday, we welded the bracket right to the frame, but I think when we welded it we might have cooked the the Teflon. There's like a Teflon bushing or something in here, because even when I lock it down, I lock it like that, it still tilts a little bit. So the tilt lock is kind of worn out or burnt out, one or the other. And also, when you tilt it, the whole shaft moves on this end. So I'll probably end up fixing it. I'll find a certain position that's decent, and I'll just lock it down or weld it or have it fixed in a fixed position. But the good news is, with the bearing in the end here, it's not sloppy. It's nice and tight. No more slop, which is good. That's what I wanted. Alright, well I done messed up, and I actually welded that, and I forgot to set the tilt, because it's supposed to be a tilt steering column, but in this vehicle that wouldn't work because the whole shaft would be moving up and down. So I fixed it in place, fixed it into position, and put the bearing back in the end there, and welded the end back on enough to hold the shaft steady and straight and true, so there's no slop on this end. And I know this is on a bit of an angle, but I turned it that way intentionally so I could make contact down below to the frame. And the steering column is more or less mounted, and I'm a lot happier with it today now that the bearing I put the steady bearing back in the end. I'm a lot happier with it. There's no slop anymore, and there's no tilt anymore either, because I just welded it into position. So that's her final destination there. Seat goes way ahead. Seat goes way back. Yeah, not too bad. Now that I have to build the steering shaft between this spline and that spline there. Oh my goodness. You're a pretty thing. Ryder, leave that butterfly alone. I found this bed extender rack, which has some broken bits, and it's made of stainless, so I can't weld it, I don't think. It's a little bit too wide, but it makes a nice size truck box in the back here. It only extends past the floor just slightly, so if I had an oversized bumper or something, that might work. Or if I move the hinge point somewhere else, I don't know, I might be able to make that work, possibly. This steering column here, it has a headlight switch built into it, signals that are self-canceling or whatever, and a wiper switch, which I probably won't use. Some of these parts are removable, but I have the cover off the column, and the key works with the, if you take the key out, the steering column locks. So I'll probably keep that functioning, but this won't fit because it's a little bit too long. However, I can probably remove this steel plate, which doesn't do anything, and cut it shorter, and modify it to fit. I think I still have the top plate. This is the bottom plate. I think I still have the top plate somewhere. Well, I've mentioned earlier how I want to do weight reduction on this project, and that steel plate is pretty heavy. So if I toss that, there, weight reduction, stage 1. Oh my goodness, I just saved about half a pound there. Lost half a pound. Anyway, she's dirty in there, and I used this other piece to mark out a guideline, and I think that'll work. Of course, it goes the opposite direction, but if I cut that, I might lose a little bit more weight. Modification. Modification. Oh yeah, big time. That'll do, donkey. Holy shit, boys. For the first time, I just seen one of the bees come. He was actually flying around me, so I backed up a little bit, and he landed over here, and then he went over there, and then he went in the nest. Actually, I don't know, it looked like a female or a queen or whatever, but I don't really know. I couldn't tell you for sure. But as soon as the bee came in, like 5 seconds after the bee came in, it started raining. So I think the bee knew that the rain was coming. So now that they're out and about and healthy, like I haven't seen them fly around before, and I was just hammering on that extension to tap it on, and it's the first time I've seen them out and about. So maybe they're growing. I don't know. It's hard to peek in there now that I've got this front on. But anyway, I took the shaft extension that comes with this front wheel drive Suzuki, and I tapped it on. I actually flipped it upside down because that joint seems to have more action. I don't know. You can get more angle out of it before it binds up. But I'm not having any issues with binding anyway. I flipped it over because this end here is removable, and I'll probably end up putting a different end on to fit the steering rack. I was going to take it apart right here, but I ended up getting this U-joint that came with the shaft and came with the column. I got it to slide over the pilot spline, or the pilot shaft, and I cut some grooves. I used the angle grinder and I cut some splines into the pilot, because the pilot is actually smaller than the shaft spline. So I used the pilot, and I made a flat spot for the bolt to go through, and I cut a bunch of grooves and splines into it, clamped it on there, and now the steering is hooked up. It's sort of working, but the tie rod ends they're just hanging there because I don't have the right nuts for them. So I need to get the proper nuts and put them on. But yeah, steering is it's all hooked up now. Got a steering column, shaft, rack. Miserable as frig. Isn't that friggin' sexy? There's actually 2 rainbows. I don't know if you can see the other one or not. The second one up above. 2 friggin' rainbows, boys. And the sun's shining over there. Thunder and lightning. And rainbow. And 2 rainbows. Well, I went and got some hardware. So I got the proper nuts finally. So I can put the tie rod ends on to the spindles properly. And I got some nylon, Teflon lock nuts for the kingpins. And actually I've already put this nylon lock nut on this kingpin here. And I have not yet done that one. And yeah, so I need to go ahead and finish putting on the other lock nut and the tie rod ends. And I got the shaft on yesterday. I gotta find the bolt that goes in here, but I had to adjust it anyway. There's quite a long spline here, which is good. And yeah, time to finish this friggin' steering up finally. So steering should be done now, I think. Got her pretty much licked and all the hardware on. Lock nuts are on, the kingpins. Yeah. Well, it's been a while since I had the front wheels off, but this is sort of what it looks like with the wheel off. And I'm gonna try to find some better, more appropriate wheels for the front. I'm gonna try to find some hopefully 15-inch alloys. I've got a 15-inch steel wheel on the other side, which isn't bad, I guess. But alloy would be lighter, I think. And I'll try to get something that'll maybe match what I'm want to do with the back, or at least a little bit. They're going to be different bolt pattern in the front and in the back, unless I can get multi-pattern wheels. But if I can get some 5-spoke alloys in the front and 5-spoke alloys in the back, I don't really care if they match perfectly. I think it might be smaller tires on the front anyway. Well, I'm tired and dirty, but I got a seat, and it's tired and dirty also. And it's supposed to rain tonight, so I'm just going to leave it outside. And I'm going to hope that the rain will clean it up a bit. And I hope it rains good. So this is a seat out of the back of a Jeep YJ. That's the same type of vehicle that my roll cage or my roll bar came from. So after measuring, this should be perfect for the back seat. And it's collapsible. It folds up twice. Laying down some more rivets. That's how many rivets I've used probably on the whole project. So far. And I just put down 3 here. And I'm clamping the floor down. There's a cross member that goes on a 45-degree. So I'm clamping the floor down to the cross member and drilling through the floor and the cross member. And so far so good. I drilled 3 holes and I put in 3 rivets, and I hit the cross member every time. So I'm just going to lay the floor down better and fasten it with some more rivets. It's not going anywhere. It's bolted down here and bolted down here, and there's rivets all down both sides. But just in case it rattles in the middle or something, clamp it down, and then I can fit my back seat better. I was waiting for rain. It's supposed to rain this afternoon or tonight or tomorrow. I was waiting for rain to wash it off because it's a little dirty, but then again, so are these. These are pretty dirty also. So I might just bring it in here, even though it's dirty, even though I just had a shower. Frog snacks. Anywho, I think it'll fit good, and there's going to be some adjustability because the forward seats move ahead and back, and I think it's low enough that I can put it under this bar, so I might have to put some padding on this bar, I don't know. And I think it'll fit in there width-wise and height-wise, because I've already done measurements on that. And I think it hinges at the front, and I got the hinge, so I'll probably just drill 2 holes. The hinge bolts flat to the floor, so the seat can fold down, and then the whole seat folds up, which is pretty cool, if I can make that work. Well, it still hasn't rained yet, for frig's sakes. Jeep. Frig, that looks like blood. Oh my goodness. I love that kind. Terrible. Well, I'm still not sure which wheels I'm going to use yet on the front. I'm pretty sure that I'll be using these wheels here on the back. I'm not sure about the tires, but I'll be using 15-inch alloys on the back, and I want to use 15-inch alloys on the front also, but I haven't decided or found which wheels yet to use. The steering column is installed now. It's actually welded to the front rack, but oh well. I don't think it'll be getting changed anytime soon. And the steering rack, or the rack and shaft, they are all pretty much good to go. I got the lock nuts on the kingpins, and I got the proper nuts on the tie rod ends. I moved the seat midway so I can make room for this dirty Jeep seat. And it is quite dirty, but I think I can make it work. It might be good for like maybe, I don't know, it's going to be cramped. It might be good for like kids or small people or maybe one person. It's a two-person seat out of the back of a Jeep YJ, but the leg room is very minimal. I could always move the seats ahead a bit, but it depends on the driver. Like the driver has to be comfortable. But I think I can make this work. I'll have to put some padding on this back bar, on this rusty bar here. I have to put some padding on it, which is no big deal. It's all coming together, I think. There's not much room here for cargo. I do have a bed extender off of a Ford Sport Track, Ford Explorer Sport Track. So I might be able to use that, but I'm not sure yet. Well, when the back seat is folded up, it seems to fold up pretty nice. When it's folded up, there's quite a bit of cargo space here. And I might be able to make it even better, because I'm trying to make a little bit of room in the front. I don't have the seat all the way ahead, but I do have it ahead a little bit. So I'm trying to make foot room in the front and back to figure out where to drill these holes. But also the backstop can only go so far, and I'll put some padding on here. On this bar here, I'll put some padding on here, so even if your back does touch it, it'll just be soft or padded. So I think I can actually push this ahead a little more. It's just sprung because it's up against the seat, but I can still have the seat in a position like this, or maybe back another click, because there's a little bit of room there where it's sprung. So somewhere around there, maybe ahead an inch. I just want to make sure that it can fold up. And it hinges. I don't have the hinges bolted in right now, but it hinges pretty much straight down like that. And then it hinges once more here. Like I said, I might have to push it ahead an inch to get this where I want it, and then put the padding on. And there's like a latch here, and when it's latched back, it won't fold up, or the bottom only sits on rubbers. Focus. The bottom sits on rubbers, and there's 3 of them, one on this side, one in the middle, and one on that side. but when it's latched back, it can't go anywhere because it's bolted in the front and it's under this